Okay, so now I'm going to install the throttle cables here. They slip on right here, just like that. And they sit kind of down here at the bottom, about right there. It kind of fits between the brake master cylinder bolt right here and the lever. There's kind of a spot it has to fit in. There we go. Okay. Okay, then the throttle cables are supposed to go underneath the brake cables there, believe it or not. Just like that. Okay, then the throttle cables will go right over the top of the radiator right here on the inside. There we go. Okay, so now we're ready to install the throttle bodies. Okay, the first thing I like to do when installing throttle bodies is set up the throttles first, so we'll go ahead and do that. You need to figure out which one's the throttle and which one's the return. So it should be that way. That's the throttle, black throttle, which goes on the top side. So it's easiest to kind of push this all the way around and kind of get it down in there at the same time, and hopefully you can get this on. There we go. And then we'll do the return, which goes on the bottom here. It's a little bit easier to install. There we go. Okay, now you just need to tighten them up with a wrench. Okay, throttle's good to go, so now we can get ready to actually put them onto the engine. The next thing I'm going to do, this keeps getting caught up, is this is a temperature sensor and it gets plugged in down here under the intake. So I'm going to go ahead and take out my intake protectors here also. Before I put these in further, I'm going to also put a little bit of oil around. They're already oiled. Okay, so they're already oiled, so we're going to go ahead and put these on. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put the temperature sensor on that goes under the engine here down to that sensor. There we go. And then I've also ran the idle adjuster out kind of this side of the bike there. Make sure you've got these coolant lines up out of the way. And there's one over here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so now I'm gonna get these in here and hopefully into position. There we go. So they're in now. Also right here, of course, there's going to be the main harness for that. There we go with that. And that goes up to another spot. This is the coolant line. It's going to run kind of right in here under this harness onto that right there on that side. Kind of like that. There we go. Then this one goes right over here on this side also. That goes to the air box. And there's also one that goes to the air box, comes off of here. This, of course, goes to the fuel tank. Right over that way. Then there'll be another fuel line that goes right here. So now we just need to tighten down the clamps that hold this on. Only one of them out of them all are a little bit tricky. And that's this third one, or cylinder 3, because it's all the way over. So right now I'm tightening those up. You probably can't see that. There we go. So now there's one on the other side. The last one, you'll need a real long Allen wrench. I use one of these Allen sockets on an extension to reach over there because it's all the way across the bike. Okay, so throttle bodies are installed now. We're getting pretty close to cranking it here. Okay, one of the best or easiest parts about these bikes is how easy it is to install this airbox. It simply just kind of plops on there. Then we're gonna have 4 things that go in, or 2 things that go in here. Okay, then these things go in right down in here that retain the airbox and screw into the engine. Oh, one thing, glad I noticed that. You need to cap this if you're not running the, right here, you need to cap that if you're not running the original emission system. Okay, now we've got that port plugged up, so we'll go ahead and continue installing the rest of this here. So these just simply sit down in here, just like that, and the same on this side also, so just like that. All right, those are installed now. Put a new air filter in, just like that. Make sure it's down in there for you put in this groove before you screw down on it, or it's going to be a pain. There we go, got it. So now I'm going to go ahead and install the airbox lid here. It's really super easy, just sits on and a bunch of screws go in it. Right here on the back though, one thing to note is you got to plug in this, I think it's a temp sensor, and it goes right there. Also, this middle one has a plug that goes in here. Put it back in once you get it in. Okay, airbox is installed. I just need to put the breather hose down to the crankcase right there when I can find it. Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and install the rear wheel and brake after this. First thing I'll do is just kind of get the tire sitting in here so it's in a convenient spot and take the axle out. I also have the brake for the other side ready to go on. There we go. Okay, first thing I'll do is put the chain on because that's the easiest. I've already slipped the chain guard in there, but I have not fastened it down in any way yet. Now the chain's on. I'm going to make sure these are pushed all the way in and go ahead and bring this up to the axle height here and start to slide the axle in. Okay, now we're going to go over to the other side. On this side, the brake goes right here and it kind of slides down in there, so it's a little bit tricky to get in there sometimes. There we are. Okay, this axle nut, once you have the chain adjusted, and of course I already have it adjusted because I put it together already once, it's going to be torqued down to 108 foot-pounds or 150 Newton meters. There we go. Okay, so unfortunately I lost some of the audio, but I'm going to have to do a voiceover here. So up next I'm installing the chain slider or chain guide here. It's held on in 2 places with little 8mm bolts, but the front one also holds in place the chain guard, so keep that in mind as you're installing it. There's no real torque value other than the standard torque for a 5mm bolt on these. So just go ahead and install those. It's pretty easy. I probably used a bit of Loctite on this, and also that front one has a big washer there, so watch out for that. So that's installed. Okay, up next I'm going to be installing or torquing down the main drive note right here. It's going to be torqued down to 80 Newton meters, and then you need to make sure to put down the tabs on the lock washer here. I was just using a screwdriver to tap them down till they're flat on the drive nut. The next piece to go on here is going to be this guard that protects the crankcase in case the chain were to break or something like that, or when it gets too loose to keep from breaking a hole in it. It's going to have 2 Allens that hold it in place. Really there's a third also, but it goes through the case, as you can kind of see me putting it there in the way. So I'm going ahead and installing these Allens and torquing them down, and I'm just checking it right here to make sure I put the Allen that's already there in the right spot. So I tighten those down, and then I'm going to go ahead and install the cover here by placing the rest of the overflow hoses and other wires that go up in the little slot in the sprocket cover that goes right there. Finally, I'm going to be installing the bolts that hold this cover down. And of course, all of these bolts are going to be torqued down to 10 Newton meters. Okay, up next I'm going to be installing the left rear set here. It of course has the shift shaft that's going to go through the frame right there. Then it's going to have these 2 8mm bolts that are going to be torqued down to 28 Newton meters. Okay, up next I'm going to be reinstalling the rear brake caliper here. The first thing I'm going to do is put the caliper directly on with the pads in it. It'll just kind of slide in, and you put that front pin bolt back through. That bolt's going to be torqued down to 27 Newton meters. Then you're going to reinstall the rear pin bolt, which you can kind of see me putting in now, and that's going to be torqued down to 22 Newton meters. Okay, the final step I'm going to be doing here for this voiceover is installing the rear master cylinder here. These bolts are going to be installed, of course, and then torqued down to 18 Newton meters for the actual master cylinder itself. The next part to go in is I'm going to put the pin in that holds the rear brake pedal to the actual master cylinder itself. It's just a roll pin that goes through, kind of right there on the silver part above the black brake lever. It has a cotter pin that holds it in on the back. Of course, the little reservoir here also has a bolt that holds it to the bracket up here as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and zip tie this back somewhat. It's supposed to kind of go about right down here. Okay, so now we can go ahead and start installing this. The first thing that goes on is this kind of rubber thing. It just kind of presses into these 2 holes right here. There we go, just like that. Then this sits around that. This is pretty straightforward. It just kind of slides in there. Okay, so there's going to be a push pin that goes right here. So we'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's installed after a little fight, but basically there's just one push pin here and one push rivet there. And then that's attached. And then you can put the next fairing on.